discussion and insight into really what the different types of boards and fair organizations are, how they operate, because without really knowing what you are and what your relationships are to the other people that you work with through the preparation and operation of the fair and other events, you really can't start to do risk management. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time today on that. And we'll see that for each one of you, depending on how you're structured in your county, the way that you're going to have to deal with reducing your claims and dealing with vendor contracts and things like that is going to be significantly different from entity type to entity type. So, first of all, I just wanted to say that, we started doing this fair and event workshop. I think this is our 5th annual now. And we did it because we saw a lot of claims spinning out of the fair and really just a lot of people not understanding what the different relationships should be. And, my main report in my life is to commissioners, like a lot of you. And they're not really understanding after the loss. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing as much pre-loss as we could to help you guys operate your fairs safely and efficiently. And when there are claims and are lawsuits, that we don't all have to go hiding from the commissioners, that we're able to answer the questions, we're able to work through the lawsuits, and nobody needs to be losing their head over it, least of all me. Because, quite frankly, I spend a lot of time in county commission rooms and listen to people come and talk to the commissioners and air their concerns about what the county's doing that it shouldn't be doing and what the county's doing that it's not doing enough of. And I'm really always surprised at the number of times that I hear people attack the counties being involved in fairs and other events. Now, their main argument is that the statute says that counties cannot expend funds on entertainment and recreation. But that's not an area that counties are supposed to be involved in. So that's their main argument. Now, we can all easily justify that the fair and other events does a lot more than just entertainment and recreation, right? It's economic development. It's putting the county on display to show the residents all the good things that happen in the county. It's allowing residents to put on display their abilities, the special things that happen in your county that may not happen elsewhere. It's development of tourism in your county and development of tax revenue for people that come in from out of state and from out of town. So, we've got a lot of things there to justify and to help protect against that argument that counties shouldn't be involved in these types of events. But again, I want you to know that I'm certainly a big supporter of the fair. I always have been. I attended, my earliest memories, great memories, are of going to the county fair with my family in our hometown. I rode motocross in the motocross events. I one year actually rode a horse at the fair. Isn't as common in Minnesota as it is here in Utah. So I'm a big supporter of the fair, and so that's why I've made the commitment to have USIP spend the extra time and effort on this area to make sure that the fair is protected, the events are protected, and that the commissioners are comfortable that we can continue to have these types of events and put down those arguments that are made by some that the county shouldn't be involved in it. And just to show you a little bit of just how much of a fair supporter I am, I just wanted to show you the 4 basic food groups as far as the family version of the 4 basic food groups are. There is, of course, dairy. No question about it. But beyond dairy, the second major food group is baskets. The third major food group is cones. And the fourth major food group, my personal favorite, is sticks. So again, I make light of it, but I really think it's important that we can protect the fair and protect these events. And so I know a lot of what you're going to hear today, talk about today, some of it's scary, most of it's just plain boring. But it's really important that we all think about these things in preparation for the fair and throughout the operation of the fair if we're going to continue to have the fair and special events at the level that we're able to enjoy it now. I certainly hope we can. So, as we go through the day, we're going to talk a little bit about procurement, and again, that's going to depend on what type of entity your fair board really is, so we're going to talk about that first. We're going to talk about board member liability today. We have a little break from insurance after the lunch hour to talk about service and volunteerism and how you do things to get better volunteers, more volunteers. I know that's always important to you. We're going to talk a little bit about how to implement a lot of the changes that we're talking about, and get some testimonial from one of the counties that has made some really significant changes in the last 5 years that I've seen in their county fair and how it's operated, and particularly their relationship with the board members, commissioners, and other department heads who they need their buy-in and their assistance to get things done, to do the fair the right way. And then we'll wrap up at the end of the day with a couple of our county attorney's assistants in looking at the different forms and policies and procedures and contract forms and things like that that we can utilize to put in place all the things that we talked about today. Okay? Are you all ready? Hopefully I won't lose my voice before the end of the day. So before we go into procurement, again, it really all depends on what you really are. So what type of an entity are you in your county? And so really it breaks down into a couple different areas that I see. You're either really part of the county, and the county runs the fair or the event, or there's some form of an advisory board that the county has created that does a lot of the work, coordinates the fair, but at the end of the day, the county commission is still the authority that has the power to purchase, the power to sign contracts. You really don't have any legal authority beyond the county commissioners. You are advisory to them and make recommendations for them as to what contractual relationships to enter into and those sorts of things. Then we also have some out there that are separate legal entities. Either you are, as the fair board, that you're operating and you're just simply using the county fairgrounds in agreement with the county, but the county doesn't make the decisions, you make the decisions, you run the fair top to bottom, you are a separate legal entity from the county. Or you're just one of these great groups of folks that volunteer every year and get things put together, and the fair or the other event goes off and everybody's happy. I've seen a lot of those over the years, and hopefully we're doing away with those groups that don't really exist, that don't have any real legal basis to operate. You gotta be a government entity or a corporation or a nonprofit or something. You can't just be a group of do-gooders. If you get sued and you're one of a group of do-gooders, you're losing your house and you're losing your cabin and you're losing your snowmobiles and you're losing everything else you own. And we don't want that. Because again, we want good, strong volunteers assisting us putting these events together. So I thought we'd start out this morning with a little insightful test. And we're going to walk through each of the counties that we've got here today and try and answer that question. Quickly and simply, what are you? So is the Beaver County representative here? Don't you hate being first on the alphabet? At every thing, you just must have to go first, don't you? So tell us, which of the 4 spheres do you fit into in Beaver County?
Kind of a mix between the county department and the advisory board. I get a stipend because I'm the chairman, but everybody else is volunteer, except for USU Extension and some of the county employees who sit on the board.
Okay, so more or less the board is an advisory board created by the commission to put the fair together?
The commissioners pretty much just will let me do what, that sounds bad, whatever I want, but kind of, as far as getting the people to work, all that kind of stuff, that's my job. And, they provide the funds, and usually they come to every fair board meeting, just one of them comes, so, I don't know, kind of a mix,
From what I'm hearing, I'm going to call you an advisory board, because you're still part of the county. The county's paying you a stipend. They're asking you to do the work, and so you're providing that in an advisory capacity. Okay? So, do we have anyone yet from Box Elder?
Me.
Oh, Jan, how are you? I never see the people in the front row.
I feel like I'm county department, advisory board, and hopefully the great groups of folks.
But in your county, I mean, the county is very involved in the actual coordination efforts and stuff. They use an advisory board, but when it really comes to who's running the fair, legally, when who gets sued, in Box Elder, from all the work I've done up there, I'm going to say that you're really operated by the county. Because there is that very close link.
When I get in trouble, that's what I tell them.
Yes. It's good.
Go talk to the
Nowhere to
commissioner.
hide. And Carmen, do we have Carmen here yet?
We're totally county. I'd like to say we're a great group of folks, but we're totally county.
Davis, who from the Davis contingent would like to answer?
I would say we're part of the county department too.
And Shane? So advisory board. And Emery. Do you have anyone from Emery here?
She called and told Sonia she wasn't going to make it.
Oh, all right. Juab, is our Juab person coming yet? Let's get them for now. Rich was also late. No one from Rich yet. San Juan, Crystal.
Advisory.
Severe.
We're county.
Wasatch.
We're council.
And Weaver.
County.
Dave was waiting to hear that answer.
Yes, he was.
Good. Well, and that really helps for me to know that we're not dealing with anybody here in the room today that, first of all, isn't really, has no idea what they are, or that is a completely separate thing from the county. Because even those of you who have advisory boards, you're still, as an advisory board, you're still a county. And so, the trick there is to make sure that everyone on your advisory committee has been properly put on that advisory committee by the board, that they name you onto the advisory committee, or if you do it through a volunteer process, that you're properly identified as a volunteer, so that when the county gets sued, when the fair board gets sued, that every member of that, of your board is going to be defended and covered by the county. Okay?
And volunteers too, they would be covered as well.
Volunteers as well. We'll talk a little bit about that as we talk about board member liability.
What I guess my question was, like, we're county, but I have that great group of folks that are all volunteer, and so we're all covered the same, right?
Well, if you follow through the process.
Okay.
So we'll talk about the process
Okay.
and the requirements there under the statute to protect the volunteers. So, I forgot I wanted to go through around the room real quick this morning, because I know that a lot of you know each other and work with each other, but I do want to make sure that, again, we all know who each other are and where we come from and what we're doing. So why don't we start in the back, and not with Beaver, and introduce ourselves.
We should start with Beaver.
And what role we play in the county fair and county events.
Wendy.
Charlene?
Okay, well, I'm Charlene Lamp, and I'm risk management for Davis County. And I just kind of bother them.
In the bother. I'm Rhonda Peterson with the Carbon County Fairgrounds and Event Center, but part of my job is to oversee the fair, 4th of July celebrations, all of the celebrations that the county puts on.
And I'm Jennifer Graham. I'm with the Golden Spike Event Center in Weber County Parks and Recs. And when it comes to the fair, I work for Jan. So.
I'm her boss 4 days out of the year. I'm Jan Wilson, and I'm the special event manager for Weber County.
I'm Jody Wargeson. I'm a county attorney for Washington County, and I sort of advise the fair, but I feel like Wendy knows way more than me. So.
I'm Allison Webb, I'm the Beaver County Chairman.
I'm Dave Hansen, I'm the Legacy Event Center Department Head.
I'm Brooks Burr, and I'm the Davis County Fair Coordinator.
Wendy Sandberg, Washington County Fair Director. Joelle Rowley, Wasatch County, I'm the risk manager for the county.
I'm Chairman of the fair. I'm Joanne Evans, I'm the risk coordinator for
Houston County.
I'm Crystal Holt, and I work in human resources and risk management for San Juan County.
Dave Wilson, County Attorney's Office.
I'm Paula Martin, I'm the Sewer County Events Coordinator, so I'm the fair director and other events like the Home Festival and some other stuff.
Yvonne Buchanan, Sewer County, maintenance at the fairgrounds.
I'm Jan Rose, I'm Fox River County, I've got the fairgrounds and the fair, I'm the event coordinator.
Okay.
I'm
Tall,
Neil.
dark, gentleman in the back.
I'm Neil Geddes. I'm with the Davis County Attorney's Office.
And he bothers us.
So good. We've got a really good group, risk managers, county attorney's office, the facilities managers, the events people, the planning the events themselves. So it's a good group of varied responsibilities to help us through our discussions today. So as we look at and went through this process and tried to identify, and some of you we even questioned, we're not kind of the county, we're kind of the advisory, we're kind of the good old group. Asking yourself that question about yourselves, the next step that I want you to do as you go back and you start working with all the different groups that you're going to contract with to pull off the fair this year is ask that same question about the person sitting across the table from you. Who are they? I heard somebody mention that they put on the 4th of July event, right? How many of you know for an absolute fact that the group that puts on the big 4th of July event ask the county to give them some money so that they can have the fireworks and put on the big event for the 4th of July, that you know absolutely certain that they are a legitimate corporation with an insurance policy in place? because I rarely see that. They are almost always the good group of folks, and not any type of legal entity. So ask this question about all those people that you work with as well, is what exactly are they? And so you know what your relationship should be with them. Okay. From there, we'll go to this question. One of the major areas of authority that you would have or not have as an entity of the county. And again, because we're all either the county, actually the county, or an advisory group to the county, this discussion will be a little bit easier. Again, as we look at procurement, this is an area that is becoming more and more complex. There was a bill in the legislature again this year that substantially changed and made more difficult the process to purchase things by the state, which also affects counties unless you pass your own ordinance. So let's look at a few things, ask ourselves a few questions, again, to try and figure out whether or not we are doing our purchasing as a fair organization correctly. First of all, we've answered the question of what's our relationship to the county. We're going to say that we all, for this practice, we are the county. So however the county has devised to be able to legally purchase things, that's the way the fair would need to go through about that process. Okay? Because you are expending public funds. And if you were a separate legal entity taking donations in or spending last year's reserves, things like that, you may be able to get out from under this one that those may not be public funds. But again, if you're operating as part of the county, they're going to be considered public funds, and so you're going to need to follow the procurement requirements in the statute. This is the next question that is a question not just for the fair groups, but for all the counties as well, is does the county have its own procurement code that's been passed by ordinance? How many of you know that for a fact, that your county has done that? Not a policy. Policy doesn't count. A code put in place by ordinance. Because that's the language in the statute at this point. And I know that there are many counties that just simply have a purchasing policy. We gave it to them like 15 years ago. That they operate under, but at this point they can't use that to purchase any longer. If they don't have a code passed by ordinance, they must follow the State Procurement Act, which is incredibly hand-tying. You won't ever get anything done. So that's your first bit of homework when you get home, is to make sure that your county has actually passed an ordinance with a procurement code. And of course, then you need to make sure that you understand what the procurement code, how it lays out your process to purchase things, and what authority that code provides you as the fair organization, or as a department head, or as a person being paid a stipend and given certain responsibilities by the county commission, so that as you make these purchases, you know that you're doing it and have the proper authority under the state law to be making purchases. How many of you are bidding for goods and services now? So when you're looking at who's going to drop the portable toilets, you bid that out to the different vendors. Because again, most likely, that's one of the types of services that is going to be expensive enough over a 2 or 3 day period that it will meet the requirements to have to be bid out. You can't just go out and select a local guy to do it. It needs to be bid out. And you need to look at your own county's procurement code and determine what that threshold is of how much the cost is before it has to be bid out. Jen, did you have a question? Because generally that limitation is set at somewhere to $2,500, $5,000, something along those lines, and if it's more than that, it needs to be bid out. And don't think that you can contract for it each day of the fair separately in order to keep under that dollar threshold. That would be a Class B misdemeanor, I believe it is currently under the statute, to intentionally divide a contract up into smaller pieces in order to have it fit underneath the requirement to go out to bid. So, am I ruining your morning right off the start? Yeah. But again, these are the types of attacks that people will make against the county to try and say that they shouldn't be operating the fair because the fair is not doing things the way that they're supposed to. So, probably not something that you need to shut down everything you're doing for the fair this year, but you definitely want to be sitting down with the county attorney's office, identifying, getting a copy of your county's ordinance for purchases and reviewing that with everyone that you work with for your events to make sure that everybody understands what can be purchased with telephone bids, what has to go out to a full RFP bid process, what other areas do you have that might have exception where you won't need to go out for bid. It certainly makes it very difficult. I attended the statewide association conference a couple months ago, and walked through the vendor booths, and everybody's, all the musicians and other entertainers are trying to get you to sign them up for your fair this year. And that was one of my first thoughts: is are the counties just simply walking up and signing a deal with an entertainer?
Yes, because you can't bid out an entertainer.
I realized that until the state legislature. That.
On availability and and localized, and is that really what you're saying?
Well, again, you're going to have to look at your code in Washington County. Jody, do you know the code well enough in Washington County to?
I think we'll have to look at it. I'm not gonna say off the top of my head.
Nothing would ever get done as quick as we need it to get done.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry.
And we can work through those processes, but
you lose on that.
again, because you can work your way into being able to contract with the entertainers that are available on those dates, that are within your price, your budget and things like that. But you need to make those types of exceptions in the code when it's being adopted by the county. So if you look at your current code now, and maybe the entertainers are below what your county has set for that threshold, where you don't need to go out to full bid.
It's whatever the amount is.
That's one of the things that you want to consider.
Not
is what the amount is.
necessarily.
The other is
I don't bid out my derby because there's only how many people in the state that can do it.
right. The other would be more or less a sole source type situation. Most ordinances that counties would adopt would make deference to a sole source provider. That there is only one derby company that's available